every, 2 weeks, we meet on Tuesday mornings. Our team consists of administrators, of course, all those that are available, school counselors, success teachers, WIA directors. WIA stands for Workforce Investment Act. We have a grant that is focused on juniors and seniors that are living in poverty and helping them to develop a career path, whether it be a trade or just a regular job or going to college. So we have about 30 kids involved in that. Last year we focused just on 10 kids. We got kids everywhere from Virginia Tech to learning to work on a NASCAR. It's really neat. They provided computers for the kids. They tried to get rid of the barriers that a child in poverty has about going to college. How to, even paying the application fee, is difficult. So they help them with all those things. So those directors are with us. Our testing coordinator, administrative special ed, our social worker, our school psychologist, and attendance clerk. Now that's ideal. Do we always all make it there? Sometimes not, but we try to always be there. We have this data dashboard, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet, where we take data from Starbase, business objects, from teachers, from counselors, and we put it all together in a format that's easy to kind of analyze what the students' needs are. We identify the seniors and determine their obstacles and implement a plan for them. There is no one fits all, for these kids. Everybody needs something different. So it's trying to figure out what it is that those students need. And some will need multiple things. We're branching out at semester and starting this with our juniors in hopes of getting them ready for their senior year. We have multiple seniors who are taking 2 and 3 Englishes because they have not gone to summer school and gotten caught up and that type of thing. So trying to implement with our juniors, we've hired a graduation coach. There's some safety net funds and maybe helping them do some online English. They've already taken English 9 3 times. Let's try it online this time with some support there and see if they're more successful. So working toward that at semester. We constantly update this data dashboard. We have an on-time graduation war room, which is where we take all the data in our spreadsheet. And I believe you have a copy. Did they get a copy as well of the bird?
Yes, it was out there.
Okay.
Here, yeah. Thank you,
So
Laura.
on the back of
Read the banner. Here we go.
Yes,
All
on the
right,
back
so
of one of
this-
those forms is our data dashboard, and you'll see 3 columns there, and they have the kids labeled anywhere from a 5 to a 1. 1 being those kids that have maybe not attending school anymore. They're going for a GED. They're going for some other. They've gone to community, some other program that we're not going to be able to implement a plan at birth for them. Step 2 would be a kid that needs an SOL to graduate. So what's the SOL plan to get them remediated when they're taking it, that type of thing. 3 would be an attendance conference with an administrator. We get the parent in there. We try to figure out what are the reasons that they're not coming to school. We try to sign a contract, make it something really viable to get them to start coming to school. Have them check in, check out with someone. What it is that they need. 4 would be grade conferences with their counselor. Counselors meet with every child who's failing a class that they need to graduate. Maybe not every F, but every child who needs that course to graduate. Like if they're failing Spanish 4, but they could get a standard diploma if they don't pass their language, we're not as worried about. These are kids who are not going to walk on June 10th. So that's what we're really looking at. And then 5 is a who do you stand for mentor. Those kids that need an extra support in the building to be there, to make sure they're there every week, to make sure they're, they have their supplies, that they have their graduation gowns, that it's just a cheerleader for them in some senses. So it's just that extra support. And we really got at the heart of teachers. Why we got into education was because we love kids and we want to help kids be successful. And the relationships that developed, we started this last year, between those kids and mentors was amazing. Graduation turned into a very emotional experience last year because kids that made it sometimes the first time for their family. So that was really cool. All right, so this is our data dashboard. And we use an Excel document. We get a lot of the data off business objects, some off Starbase. There's no one place that it all kind of comes together. Although, after a little presentation by Bailey Bridge, I think it is sort of coming together for the middle schools. So we're going to get on Mr. Harlan Walker and get it implemented for the high schools. But I've labeled our kids. These are our real kids. A through HH, I took out their names. But, and this is who has signed, the teachers that have signed up to be their mentors. But when we went into the war room, we sit down, and this is probably a 2 to 3 hour process. We bring in the counselor and the administrator for that child. We don't make everybody sit through every kid, but A through E administrator, A through E guidance counselor, we bring them in, and we talk about each kid, and we figure out, Are they gonna benefit from a mentor? Do they need an intense conference? Do they need, and we label them with numbers. And of course, there's not just one obstacle for some kids. Sometimes it's multiple things that are gonna happen for that child. But that really kind of helps us put it into perspective. One thing we added this year a little bit different, we did the percentage of absences, because when you talk with the child, part of this whole process before they get the mentor is meeting with the child. You know, and when I meet with them and I say, you've already missed 20% of the school days. You know, that's an astronomical number to them versus saying, 4 days of school when it's only the first 9 weeks. So it kind of starts to really come together. SOLs, this is where I get the information from my testing coordinator. She is great about keeping a running list of our seniors to make sure we can get them in the SOL Academy, make sure we're getting them at every testing opportunity in there to test and retest. Of course, the bomb threat last week didn't really help things with the whole testing process, but we're getting back on track. It's important to know who's special ed, who the case managers are. ESOL, the ESOL teachers know these kids. They know their families. They can help us communicate. So understanding that they're in that program. Again, they're super supportive. And then any special notes, a huge obstacle is student J. She has a baby at home. So that is something for her mentor to know, that if that baby's sick, she's got to be home. So things like that are important. And one thing we did differently too was we added, they're not just failing English 12, that's English 12 Miss Bova. So that way the mentors knew who their teachers were that they need to be in contact with. Figure out, are they not coming to class? What is it that's keeping them from being successful? For one kid, it was learning that he didn't really have a way to get to a computer to turn in his project, something so simple like that. So this is our way of kind of keeping up with the dashboard. I put an example here. When we go into the war room, we talk about all their obstacles. So this would be an example. He's not really one of our kids. He's some kid off Google. But an 18-year-old, he's failing government. He's been absent 20% of the days. He needs his writing SOL. He's homeless living with a friend. How the conversation starts, all of us identify, oh my gosh, he's probably not, he's absent from school because he's living with a friend, can't get up in the morning, and doesn't have mom there poking him. He may not even have a bus from where he is now, living with his friend. Maybe we get them again to them to paperwork. Make sure he's fed. He's probably not getting regular meals. Just things. That's how the conversation starts. They're needing that writing SOL. Is this a kid that's going to qualify for work keys? This is how it all kind of comes together. So we always try to put a face with it because I think you need to know these kids. There's a story there. So that's kind of what we're working on with our project graduation team. I think we're looking to add, after listening to James River, these kids don't know who else is in the Who Do You Stand For. So one thing that might be kind of cool is to have them meet every month and maybe do a, how do you get ready for a job? How do you interview for a job? Or different things to help prepare them for after high school. Like getting them graduated should just be step one. So I love that idea. That's our plan.
And I think if you could take it back one
You
slide.
didn't have to cut me off.
I didn't have to. You were fast. You were fast this time. But one of the things that, of course, the highlights will come out, the yellow highlights on your handout. But that just having that ESOL column there, our students who speak English as a second language are actually the student group that is most at risk of not making it to on-time graduation. And a couple of our high school groups that were here this morning said that wasn't even on their data dashboard, that whole column around the SOL. So just the fact that you're paying attention to that and looking at what that might have as impact to the student and how to address that is very powerful. And I really am glad that you explained a little bit more about your war room process, because taking that time up front, that seems like a huge investment of time per kid. And yet, taking that time up front to really understand and clarify what the concerns are helps you be very laser focused with your interventions. And your interventions are differentiated according to what the kids need. It is not just one size fits all. So you are really doing that essence of the tiered interventions for those kids. So very impressive. Thank you.